Welcome to AUDL Weekly, the program all about ultimate stories, perspectives, conversations, and more. Another exciting weekend of Ultimate in the books, and we've got a great show for you tonight, breaking it all down. In just a little bit, Adam and Daniel share their thoughts in another spirited disc debate, and later on, San Diego Growlers veteran Travis Dunn sits down in the Upline and Out of Bounds hot seat with Matt Smith. But first, another splendid day for a toss with the fastest 3 minutes in Frisbee. You're watching AUDL Weekly on AUDL.tv, so stick around. All right, welcome back. So many interesting games in Week 8, including two that were decided on walk-off buzzer-beating scores. Let's begin in Boston, where Tanner Johnson found Jeff Graham as time expired. Glory sneaked past the Ottawa Outlaws 19-18. Important win for Boston. They moved to 3-5. They're still hopeful of competing for a playoff spot in the East Division. One night later in Los Angeles, another buzzer beater. San Diego and LA down to the wire, and it was Goose Helton connecting with Travis Dunn, puts the Growlers up by 1. As time expired, Travis told me he thought there might be a second or two left when he actually caught it, but no, time had run out, and the Growlers edged the Aviators 20-19, fifth straight win for San Diego as they prepare to head to Salt Lake this Friday and Colorado this Saturday. Other close games from Friday. The Austin Soul, they had a 14-10 lead with about 7 minutes left in the third in Chicago. But the Union slingshot themselves back with an insane 9-2 run that completely changed the game. Chicago ends up getting the better of Austin 24-21 to win the first ever meeting between the Union and the Soul. Helps the Chicago stay undefeated. They're now 5-0. One night later in Madison, down to the wire again at Breese-Stevens Field, Radicals play their fourth one-goal game of the season, but they're now 2-2 in those contests because Kyle Henke hit Zach Slayton for the game winner with just 3 seconds left. Soul salvaged the split in their Central Division weekend, while the Radicals lose for the second straight week by 1. Both those games, the Rats D-line had more breaks than their opponent, but Madison continues to struggle in end-of-quarter situations. Hard to believe that's 8 straight quarters where the Radicals' opponent scored the final goal. Consecutive weeks, that has been the difference for the Radicals. Elsewhere on Friday night, Philadelphia won its fourth straight game, 18-14 over Toronto. So the Phoenix are now 4-3 after starting the season at 0-3. Different perspectives for the Phoenix at 4-3 with 4 wins in a row, Radicals at 4-3, but with 2 one-goal losses in a row. Meanwhile, out west on Friday, Oakland Spiders snapped their 5-game losing streak, outlasting Seattle 20-19 in overtime. Cascades scored the game-tying goal as time expired in regulation, but the Spiders get the job done in OT to get their first win of the season. How have I not yet mentioned the South Division showdown between Carolina and Atlanta? Both entered the weekend with just 1 loss, virtual tie for first place in the South, and this game was tied 14-all late in the third, but that's when the Flyers made their move. A 5-0 run to seize control. Carolina beats Atlanta 22-18. Story of this game, Hustle actually had more break chances, but they were just 2 for 10 in those opportunities. Flyers go 7 for 8 on their break chances to get the road win and improve to 7-1. Only team with more wins than Carolina in the AUDL right now is the New York Empire. They improved to 9-0 with a 22-16 victory over Ottawa. Outlaws actually led the game 10-8 into the third quarter. The upset watch was on, but much like Chicago, New York used its own 9-2 run to assert dominance in the second half, and the Empire remain undefeated. They're off this week, hosting Montreal on Friday, July 1st, when they retake the field. Joining Chicago and New York is the third member of the still unblemished trio. That'd be the Colorado Summit. They jumped in front of Seattle 5-2 early on Saturday in Denver, en route to a 22-14 win. New York's 9-0, Chicago's 5-0, Colorado splits the difference, 7-0 squad, heading into this week's showdown against the Growlers on Saturday night. Only 2 other games to mention from this past weekend. DC cruises past Toronto 26-16. Breeze are now 4-2 with an interesting matchup at Philly on tap in a week and a half. And Pittsburgh does enough in a dominant second quarter to hang on against Detroit. Thunderbirds over the Mechanix 24-21, despite the fact that Pittsburgh only outscored Detroit in 1 of the 4 quarters in the game. Losing streak still lives on, though, for the Mechanix. That's now 57 in a row. The streak will definitely survive into July. 0-7 Mechanix are off this weekend. All right, that's the story from Week 8. Coming up next, Adam and Daniel are going to look into the future as we continue here on AUDL Weekly. Back on AUDL Weekly, and we welcome in Adam Ruffner and Daniel Cohen for today's edition of Over Under. You can hear Adam and Daniel on the Swing Pass podcast twice every week. Gentlemen, good to see you both. The hair looks phenomenal on this particular Wednesday night. Adam, let's start with you this week. 3 remaining undefeated teams in the league: Chicago, Colorado, and New York. So I ask you, over the course of the rest of the regular season, thank you for the 3, over under 1.5 regular season losses combined for the Union, Summit, and Empire.
I'm going to take the over on this. I just think that all of those teams still have a lot of competitive matches left in their schedule. And I think that they're all going to be looking to tinker still a little bit in their lineups. All of them had kind of close-ish moments in their games this last weekend. None of them won particularly cleanly in Week 8, but they all impressed by closing out. And I just think it shows you that the competition's starting to catch up a little bit in each division. Every team is sort of starting to round into midseason form. I just expect between the trio of teams, 2 losses to come up at some point. Chicago's still got away games at Minnesota and Madison. Colorado has to go to San Diego at some point. New York showed that they do have a little bit of a weakness when their offense just isn't clicking like it should. So I think there's opportunity for an underdog upset or 2 going into the home stretch of the season, and I'm going to take the over on this.
Daniel, over under 1.5.
So New York, I'm pretty convinced, will go undefeated this regular season. The other 2 teams, I don't quite see it as much. I think there's a lot of parity in the Central Division specifically. Like, we saw how close Madison played Chicago in Chicago. That first Chicago-Minnesota game was super close. And yeah, like Adam said, they have to go up to Minnesota, up to Madison. They also host Minnesota once at home. So it feels like they might drop at least a game in there. And then, yeah, with Colorado going down to SoCal, San Diego on a Friday, I believe, and then the second day is against LA, which feels like a potential trap game. There's a lot to like about Colorado and Chicago, but they're not really blowing out opponents. And I think the parity in those divisions will allow those other teams to pull off some upsets. So I'm going to agree. I'm going to take the over, but I don't think it's going to come from New York.
So I had the topics written with this over under at 2.5, and then I changed it to 1.5 because I was worried that you would both go under, and by going under at 2.5 it didn't say as much, because if you go under 1.5 you're obviously saying only one team at most can go undefeated. If it was 2.5, do either of you switch to under?
I think I'd switch to under. I feel like 2 is pretty likely.
I think there's 3 losses out there. I think there's like exactly 3 between these 3 teams. I don't know how it susses out. I tend to agree with Daniel. I think New York's going to run the table in the East, but who knows? They were down at half to Ottawa, so it goes to show you the East floor is rising quickly.
Is New York slipping a little bit? Coming into their last 3 games? Who knows?
No. You can start that narrative if you want, Daniel.
No. My narrative is that they'll go undefeated. I'm putting it out there.
Well, you got to hedge a little bit along the way. Interesting.
Sure.
Neither of you are on board with my kind of opening thoughts in the Tuesday Toss Fantasy about 3 undefeated teams at championship weekend. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Topic number 2, Daniel. The Atlanta Hustle saw their 4-game winning streak come to an end at home this past Friday night against the Flyers. So they're currently 4-2, 6 games left. Over under 3.5 regular season losses for the 2022 Atlanta Hustle.
I did not expect them to lose by 4 goals to Carolina. This was their best roster they were bringing to any game yet this season. I think they played a little bit worse than what they're capable of. Their D-line was only 2 of 10 converting breaks. Their offense was actually very good. They converted at their second best rate of the season. I think it's going to be, I think they're going to only lose 3 games at most this season. I don't see them losing both those next 2 games to Carolina and Austin, which are the big question marks the rest of the season. They're a very good team. They were limiting Carolina a lot with that Atlanta Hustle zone. They just had to get away from the zone late in the fourth quarter, and I think we saw Carolina just string together enough, defensive break opportunities and offensive holds to pull out that win. But I think Atlanta, sorry, there's 3 teams in my mind. They are a better team than what they played like, and I think it's a little bit early to say that they're going to get to 4 losses this season.
Still a believer in the Hustle. Adam, over under 3.5.
It's not that I'm not a believer, and it's not that I don't think this Atlanta team is untalented at all. I think they have a championship level roster. However, I do think we are starting to see that right now, compared to Carolina, they're a little bit of a paper tiger. Flyers are coming off of an actual championship, and Atlanta has the disadvantage right now playing the Flyers in the last 4 games. Carolina has 3 wins in those. And I'm a little worried about them playing them again and then having to face a motivated Austin team at home a week or 2 after that. I do worry a little bit about the upcoming schedule for the Hustle. I do think that they have had a different lineup in virtually every single one of their 6 games so far this season. They are tremendously talented, but they do look a little disjointed. And as you saw against the Flyers, Carolina didn't just string together a couple breaks. They broke Atlanta. They discontinued their offensive rhythm, and they took advantage of it and blew the game wide open in the second half. That's what the Flyers do. And I think that, that is a vulnerability for this Hustle team, as they integrate so much new talent. They don't have that consistency yet as a unit, and you can see that starting to show against a little bit more of the consistent lineups spread throughout the South. So I'm going to take the over on this. I think that Atlanta might get to 4 losses this year, and I think it's going to get really interesting for that second playoff spot with Austin heating up a little bit.
Interesting. We'll see what happens. The Hustle have 3 games in the first 9 days of July. They're in Carolina on the 2nd, and then the 8th and 9th back-to-back days at Dallas, at Austin. So we don't have to wait too long to see exactly how the Hustle fare in these big upcoming road games. Topic number 3, Adam. Matt Gushohannes of the Carolina Flyers was 82 for 82 passing this past Friday in Atlanta. He has 1 throwaway in 311 passes this year. So over under 98.9% completion rate at the end of the regular season for MGH. I should mention he's currently 99.0% right now.
I'm a little offended that you didn't include the more monster stat from his performance in Week 8, and that's the negative 180 receiving yards, one of the best all-time quarterback numbers we've ever seen. I think he approached the season high from last year in a single game, and I've got to mention, he caught a 39-yard hammer in the waning moments. Could have easily been a negative 200 receiving yard game for Gushohannes. But jokes aside, Gushohannes right now is the best reset handler in the league. He is a rock for this Carolina team. Like you say, he's made 1 throwing error this entire year. I would say it's remarkable, but over the past season and a half, we've just seen that is what Gushohannes is capable of. So I'm going to take the over on this. I think he gets the league record. I think it would be a league record, right? If he went above 98.5 for a season and completed over 400 throws. I think that would set the single season record for highest completion percentage at above like 300 or 400 completions. So I expect that from Gut Johannes at this point. I think he's just so in rhythm in this Carolina team. He doesn't take any missteps as a decision maker. And yeah, I like that 98.5 number. Let's go for it.
98.9 was the number. So you're just to
98.9?
clarify. Yeah. It's got to be 99%.
Over.
Still going over.
Still taking over.
Yeah,
Daniel?
we're taking it.
I've done some math here. So he's at around 310 completions. Yeah. Strap in, everyone.
Get out of here.
If he gets to 500 completions on the season, which seems decently realistic, he'd have to average 47.5 for his remaining 4 games. If he gets to that point, he can afford to average 1 throwaway per game, so 4 more throwaways this season, and still end up at 99% completion. He's only had 1 throwaway in a game this season. Everything else has been perfect. So I'm taking a fairly confident over. Like, I don't think there's any shot he finishes the season with more than 5 throwaways, which is weird to say, but not weird when you know who we're talking about. I think it's also worth mentioning he is attacking downfield a little bit more with his throws. This Atlanta game is going to skew those stats heavily towards the backfield. The zone just causes so many swings. There's a lot of like negative yardage throws, but he's actually averaging a higher yards per completion average this season than he was last season. He's up at 7.1 this year, and that's with that Atlanta game. He was probably upwards of 8 before that. He was only completing 5.7 yards per completion last season. So he is getting a little bit more aggressive. Has also doubled his Huck numbers. But yeah, I'm all for Matt Gut Johannes finishing with fewer than 5 throwaways the rest of the season and getting that 99% number.
All right, you guys didn't ask my opinion, but I will confidently disagree and take the under.
Man.
It takes one bad weather day.
How are you confident about it?
He touches the disc all the time.
Remember when Evan was like, "Oh, Flyers are going to have a down year after the championship year."
That's 71. True. You did predict the Flyers to have a down year. He's also got another game against Atlanta. He's going to have another one of these 80 completion, negative 200 receiving yard games where he's not going to throw the disc away.
All right.
You can't when you're always just behind everyone.
When he has like 3... I love Matt Gut Johannes. He's a great player. Wouldn't want any other reset handler in the league. But there is one fine print that we didn't mention. I mean, right now the numbers don't really add up. 311 for 312 should be better than 99.0. Drops are not listed as throwaways, but they do impact the completion percentage. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
How much does Carolina
doesn't seem like y'all factored in.
I think it's because they cut you. You tried out the other year, they cut you. This is just all coming back years later. Just slander. What did Gut Johannes do to you?
That's not totally accurate, but if that's the story you want to go with, that's fine. I was invited back to their second tryout and chose not to attend, to set the record straight.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of another guy that doesn't turn the disc over very often, New York's Ryan Oscar. Topic number 4. His 5-game turnover-free streak did end against Ottawa this past weekend. However, Daniel, he's still 12 for 12 on Hucks this season. That's the most in the league without a miss by a significant margin. So, over under, 3 games left in the regular season, 0.5 incomplete Hucks in the regular season for the MVP frontrunner, New York's Ryan Oscar.
Well, first of all, I could have sworn I saw one of his throwaways against Ottawa that looked like it was like right on the edge of the hucking range. Maybe it was like a 38 or 39 yard throw, but it was super windy in that game, and the wind just kind of pushed the disc down. Never really had a chance of getting caught. I think Oscar is due for some regression, so I'm gonna take the over here. It's really like in contrast to Matt Gut Johannes, where his role is like as backfield rock reset handler, he's just not gonna force the disc downfield too much, but Oscar's role is still that shooter that he's always been, and he has been just otherworldly efficient in the first half of the season. I think he is due for some regression, so I'm going to take the over, but he's still the MVP frontrunner. He can honestly afford, I don't know, at least like 5 to 10 Huck throwaways this season and still be the MVP frontrunner in my mind. So he's got some throws to work with.
not to let the facts get in the way of a good story, but Gus Johannes has attempted 6 hucks in 6 games played. Oscar has attempted 12 hucks in 9 games played. So there's not as big of a difference as you might think. With that said, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to agree with Daniel here pretty quickly. I just, having watched the tape, there's been a couple of trust balls that Oscar's thrown up. Remember one specifically in week 3 against Boston where the defender straight up macked it to Ryan Holmes, who was standing 10 yards behind him. I just think that 12 for 12 is a little bit of a luck number at this point, and knowing Oscar at some point, he's just got to let it rip. And like Daniel, I don't think there's anything to blame with a couple more miscues on deep looks. It's just numbers have to catch up at some point with some of these deep shots in New York.
Alrighty, maybe there's a conspiracy out there of Oscar like bribing the statistician to make every 40-yard throw a 39-yard throw if it lands incomplete. I'd be surprised, but you never know. That could be a huge thing. All right,
I would be surprised.
Over under 100% over. You can hear Adam and Daniel on the Swing Pass podcast a couple times every week. Coming up here on AUDL Weekly, Matt Smith's Up, Line, Out of Bounds with Travis Dunn. But first, it's time for Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL fans? Daniel Cohen here with this week's Cohen's Cut. Today we're going to be looking at the San Diego Growlers red zone set and how they implement a vertical stack offense to attack the break side. The Growlers rely on this vertical stack because of the way it creates space, particularly break side space. And since they've got a bunch of throwers that can consistently break their marks, this gives them an edge over most defenses. So we see the sequence begin with Hunter Corbett and Tim Okita in the backfield. Now in the red zone, San Diego loves to initiate their vertical stacks from the front, because this cutter has the most options of space to attack compared to the other positions in the stack. They can cut in, or deep, or even straight horizontally, either to the force side or break side. So from the front of the stack, Paul Lally begins by cutting in towards the foreside to center the disc. Now Corbett and Okita both clear out of the backfield after this initial throw, which is super key because it takes their defenders out of the play and clears space for the next cut to come from the front. Now it's Goose Helton's turn as the active cutter next. And remember, the Growlers are always trying to take advantage of open break side space. So Goose times his cut really well here. Right after Corbett and his defender run by on the foreside, Goose fakes a cut to that vacated space, then right as Okita is bringing his defender out of the break side space, Goose cuts back hard to get that inside break from Lally. By attacking the break side, it puts the defenders on the wrong side of the downfield cutters, which gives the offense openings for continuation cuts. Here, the back of the stack defender actually commits hard to stopping the break side continuation, so it forces the cutter in the back of the stack to move towards the crossfield space. Now running away from the defender, plus a hard fake from Goose, pulls that defender out of the space that the Growlers want to attack. Now watch Jesse Cohen, whose defender had been trailing him since the throw to Helton. He times a perfect follow-up cut to the break side once that defender is cleared out of the space. Goose hits him with a backhand break, and the Growlers convert for the game-winning goal over Dallas. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join me next time for another Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL world? Welcome to another episode of Upline and Out of Bounds, right in the heat of the season. And today I am joined with an absolute AUDL legend, Mr. Travis Dunn out of San Diego. How's it going, Travis?
Doing well, Matt. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to have you on the show. It's AUDL royalty here. So with that in mind, we're going to kick it off right into the intro. So let the people know. Hometown.
Yeah, I grew up actually just outside of San Diego, a city called Escondido. Current hometown is actually Tempe, Arizona, where I went to school at Arizona State, just outside of Phoenix area.
Very cool. Current age?
31. Yeah, I'm getting too old. I have to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, right up there with me these days. You mentioned Arizona State, so that's where you went to college, but what degree did you end up getting?
Yeah, I was there for 5 years. I got a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. Then I was able to add an extra year on the end of that to finish up my master's in construction engineering.
Very cool. And current occupation, you using that now, or do you pivot to something else?
I am using it. Yeah, I've had 2 different jobs after college. One as a civil engineer. That's what I'm doing again currently. Work in the world of land development. So anything and everything that goes into developing land, that's kind of what I work on designing. We do a lot of work actually on the campus at ASU, so it's kind of fun to go back and give back to where I once got to be a student. Makes me wish I was still there sometimes, but that's all right. We got to move on at some point.
Yeah, I believe Arizona State a top 5 party school in the nation, so it sounds like a good time.
That's what they keep telling me. It feels like there's enough people there. It can be whatever you want it to be as a school, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, we will switch over to your other job, pro Frisbee player. So a couple of questions here. Current position on the field.
Yeah, I currently am starting offensive player, kind of the initiation hybrid downfield player. It's kind of nice having a line full of studs, so really we can all kind of fill every role and be versatile in the way we play. So whatever I need, whatever they need, that's what I'm at.
Yeah, if you didn't say hybrid, I was going to say it for you. So, you've been tearing it up downfield and behind the disc.
Yeah, but I've definitely always tried to, grow my game in the most versatile way possible.
Absolutely. Next one here. Why don't you fill us in on your ultimate origin story?
Yeah, so I grew up playing sports in high school and came to school out here at ASU and wanted to keep doing something, but wasn't sure that I was quite at the level to continue in any of those previous sports, which, side note, was proven to be wrong when I started playing club water polo as a sophomore. But as a freshman, jumped into the club ultimate team here at ASU and kind of just took off from there. We the first couple of years were definitely growing years, and as a team we kind of got better over the 5 years that I spent here, and it was a good time. A lot of my closest buddies kind of came from that team.
Yeah. All right, so from college ultimate all the way to the pros, last one here. You've had a lot of years, but favorite AUDL moment?
Oh man, that's hard. I don't know if I could pick one, but I guess if I had to, it's probably got to be our regional playoff game last year against Dallas. Having been to championship weekend in 2019 and facing them there when we were not in the same division, it was kind of the opportunity for that rematch and trying to atone for that previous loss. So especially after the 2-year wait from COVID and then having them in the division, splitting games in the regular season, it was that was a huge game for us, and it was fun to get out there and jump out to an early lead, and I thought that we played a pretty complete game as a team, and it's hard to beat that feeling at the end of the game when you know that you've kind of achieved the first part of the goal to make it to that final weekend. We'll see if we can get a step further this year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. Dubs against Dallas are hard to come by, so when they happen, you gotta soak them up.
Right. Yeah, they're back in your world this year, so.
Yes, sir. In a few weeks, we'll see. All right. Well, now that the audience knows you a little better, we're going to jump into today's game section, and it is a classic. Fill in the blanks. Pretty easy. I've got 3 or 4 questions here for you. they're mostly sports-based. You're a big sports guy, so we're going to talk some other sports. And we'll just hop right in. So, first question. Amazing time to be a Warriors fan. My favorite Warriors player of the last 10 years is blank.
Ooh, 10 years. I think it's got to be Steph. He, as someone who makes my best effort to be a three-point shooter in my own game, it's pretty fun to watch his uncanny ability to just let it rip from anywhere. I know in Game 5 he struggled, but then to watch him come out in Game 6 and turn it around and really guide the ship for that team this year. The playoffs was definitely a whirlwind, but it's pretty exciting to see him come out on top. And I guess I'll follow that up with that's the last 10 years. I think all time it would have to be Baron Davis. That was kind of the reason that I got into the Warriors to begin with when I started watching basketball. So got to give him a shout out there. And that dunk on Kierlinka on the playoffs is still unmatched.
Absolutely. I was about to say, I hope we get that clip up. I'm sure we will. Unreal. But all right, that's Steph and BD. That's legit. It's legit. Next question here. You've played a ton of sports growing up, so blank is the best crossover sport for Ultimate.
Ooh, that's a good question, and I'll preface it with saying that once I ended up as a captain at Arizona State, we always loved when guys came out knowing nothing about Ultimate, but having played other sports before, because we knew if we had some athleticism to work with, we could get them to pick up the Frisbee part, at least at the college level. So I think that in an overall sense, I like the way that basketball transitions, just body positioning and, movement on the field and seeing the game. If I'm honest with you, it doesn't necessarily translate from a, running perspective, but my background playing water polo, I think, translated well also, as far as kind of some of those same concepts, body positioning and field spacing and IQ.
Absolutely. You said basketball. That is the right answer. So we will just move on. All right. Last one here. A bit of a silly one, but you're known for a look, I would say. So the best part of a massive beard is blank, and the worst part is blank.
I don't know. I think the best part is probably having a signature look, and come playoff time, the concept of playoff beard is something that definitely sticks with me. I wish I could do it like all the guys in the NHL do it. Those guys have some serious playoff beards, but maybe if I can hang around this league long enough, I'll get to their level. And the worst part is probably just the endless discussion from my wife. So sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not, but I think that she's grown to enjoy it enough that I can keep it around without any issue.
Yeah, that's great. I can't believe there's Arizona beard. That sounds intense. That's good. All right. Well, we unfortunately are out of time for today. But before we get out of here, are there any last shout outs you want to give?
Yeah, shout out to the rest of the guys on the Growlers. It's been a good season thus far. We've definitely grown from game one to where we're at now. Look forward to this weekend getting our first stab at Colorado. They've proven that they're going to be a tough test, and simultaneously getting our second go at Salt Lake, who got us in week one. So look forward to that. shout out to my wife for letting me continue to chase this plastic around on the field on a weekly basis. I know, especially as a travel player, it's definitely a lot of time committed. And then also my parents and siblings, they've been a huge support kind of throughout my career, even from college to now, and they've definitely shifted family plan schedules around to accommodate my Frisbee schedule, which, as you know, during the summer it's pretty packed. So it's not a shortage of events that have been changed dates for sake of me playing Ultimate.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like you got a great support network, and I know all of them and myself are looking forward to watching y'all take on Colorado and Salt Lake this weekend. But yeah, for now, back to Evan.
Thanks, Matt.
Good stuff from Matt and Travis, although I gotta say, it was too soon for me to watch some of those highlights of Steph shredding the Celts. I love Steph Curry. How can you not love Steph Curry? But in my heart, I'm a longtime fan of the Boston Celtics and still bemoaning the fact that we didn't have Game 7 to watch this past Sunday night. It's definitely hurting me still a little bit. However, I respect anyone's passion for being a sports fan, and cool to hear about Travis's time rooting for the Dubs back in the Baron Davis era. Happy for Travis, but man, those threes, they just look too easy against the Celtics defense. All right, that's going to do it for our show tonight. My thanks to Adam Ruffner, Daniel Cohen, Matt Smith, and Travis Dunn. Thanks also to Luke Johnson, our editor extraordinaire, who threw those Steph highlights into the show. Coming up this weekend, 9 games on the schedule, including our first ever Fox Sports Game of the Week out in Denver. We'll be live on FS2 this Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock local time in the Rocky Mountains for the Growlers and the Summit. But for now, my name's Evan Lepler. Thanks so much for checking out the show this evening. Enjoy all the Ultimate this weekend, and I'll talk to you again right back here next Wednesday.